We ask the questions.
What is needed in the world?
Is that going to be?
Are things finally turning around for Spain? You mightn't be aware of it, but there are signs of life again in the country's economy. Exports are growing impressively, 5% in the first quarter this year. In March, a trade surplus with the rest of the world. It means the country's exporting more goods than it's bringing in. Spain has never had a trade surplus before, ever. And the interest yield on government bonds is coming down. That means investors view the country's debt as less risky than before. But while all of this is happening, there's still a dark cloud hanging over the country. Stubbornly high unemployment. Today, more than half of all young people between 16 and 24 don't have a job here. How can a whole generation coming of age under these circumstances ever gain confidence in the future? It's a mixed picture. But decidedly not all dark, at least according to the country's finance minister, Luis de Guindos. He's been in office now for a year and a half, and his people remind us that his government was elected with very strong support from the Spanish people, and that they're willing to give him and his colleagues time to succeed. But how much time? And what exactly is next for the country? You'll find out today on Talk to Al Jazeera, as we speak to the man in charge of Spain's economy. Minister de Guindos, thank you so much for talking to Al Jazeera. We do appreciate it. December 2011 was when you came into office, and when that happened, all of Spain's economic problems became your problems or your responsibility. Tell me your initial feeling as you came into that job. Were you thinking, right, I'm going to get down to work and do something here, or were you almost overwhelmed thinking, where do I even start?
Well, we knew perfectly the problems of the Spanish economy, the imbalances that we accumulated in the past. But also, you know, the new government has had a very clear majority in the parliament, that we had political stability, that I think that is a clear advantage in relation with other countries. And we knew perfectly that despite the problems of Spain were formidable, we had a great country that had shown a lot of dynamism in the past. So, despite the difficulties, we were confident.
And what were your feelings coming in as an outsider, looking at Spain's problems, thinking about, well, where did this actually come from? Where did Spain and Europe's problems come from?
Well, I think that there are several reasons and several causes of the macroeconomic imbalances of Spain. In Spain, we had a credit bubble. Credit was growing at a rate of 20% for many years. Afterwards, we had an important property bubble. Perhaps the largest among the industrialized countries all over the world. And finally, since we joined the euro in '98, we lost a lot of competitiveness. The combination of these three imbalances gave rise to the crisis that, in Spain we started to suffer 5 years ago.
And is it important to remember those domestic issues, like the first two issues you mentioned there, because we tend to use this catch-all phrase of the Eurozone crisis like it's one definable thing, which very much not. Domestic problems were possibly the bigger problem for Spain, I think, in the end.
Well, I think that one of the main reasons why in Spain we had this credit bubble and this poverty bubble was the monetary policy, this one-size-fits-all monetary policy over the last decade in the Eurozone. We had in Spain very low interest rates, and this was the main trigger of the credit bubble and the property bubble in Spain. So, we had very good times because when you are in the middle of a bubble, everything is nice and everything is okay. But afterwards, when the bubble bursts, you start to feel the pinch, and you start to feel the consequences of the mistakes that you made in the past.
And then how did the Eurozone problems feed into that?
I think that the Eurozone is something that is extremely positive for Spain. I always say that the Eurozone is a sort of safe haven for the Spanish economy.
Well, really?
Yes, really. I am fully convinced. And I think that the way out of the crisis for Spain is going to come through the Eurozone, because Spain has to regain competitiveness. We have to correct many of the imbalances. And we are doing that in cooperation and collaboration with our European partners. And I think that this helping hand is going to be vital.
I want to ask you, though, about the southern European states, if I can put it that way. And this can be a sort of awkward topic because it brings up this divide between Northern Europe and Southern Europe. I don't think we can deny that there is more of a problem with the southern states, with the Greeces, the Portugals, the Spains, Italys, and that. I want your view on why that is. Why have we seen so many more problems down there?
Well, we have seen more problems in the southern European countries because, well, we accumulated more debt, because credit growth was more rapid than in the northern European countries, and because we had a property bubble that was not created in the northern countries.
Is it just an unfortunate split between countries that have done well happen to be in the north and countries that haven't done well happen to be in the south? It seems a strange, some people like to point to an almost cultural difference between the two parts of Europe as a reason for this.
No, I don't think that there is a cultural difference with economic consequences between the north and the south of Europe at all. I think that the main reason of the divergency that we are now having is that the northern European countries applied policies that gave rise to much more competitiveness than in the case of the south. And I think that we lost competitiveness, but and now we have to correct that situation. And the correction of these imbalances in competitiveness are painful from the social and political standpoint.
Do you feel Spain is almost caught in the middle between the two? Because as you pointed out, I think it was your first answer, you said Spain has had a lot of dynamism in the past. It's a big country, it's a big economy, it's up there alongside the so-called northern stronger countries, but then gets lumped in with everyone else down the bottom.
Well, Spain is a large economy, it's the fourth largest economy of the Eurozone. We have been geographically diversified. The evolution of Spanish corporations overseas has been quite remarkable and astounding. And I think that in that regard, well, the foundations for the recovery are there. We made mistakes. We had some problems with the banking industry, with the banking sector. We had some problems, important problems with the property market and the real estate industry. But we are in the way of correcting this kind of problems. But I think that at the end of the day, what we have to bear in mind is that, you have to be competitive. And competitiveness is the key element in order to survive in the Eurozone. A fixed exchange rate system with a common monetary policy. And being competitive with countries like France, Germany, Italy is something that I think that is extremely important.
I referred earlier to the idea of this Eurozone crisis, which I think has become, as I said, a catch-all phrase. The media is probably to blame for that as well. It's an easy sort of thing to say. I feel almost now we're past the crisis stage, the acute stage of countries like Greece, for example, defaulting, that acute stage is over, and that we're now not so much in a crisis, but this is just life now. This is a new reality. High unemployment, low growth. Would you agree with me there that this is just, and this could be almost a generational thing? Get used to it, it's going to be like this for a while.
I fully agree with you that, for instance, 1 year ago, the problem of the euro was the problem of financial stability. And there were a lot of doubts and a lot of nervousness about the future of the Eurozone. I think that that situation is out of the table now. No? Now nobody bets against the future of the Eurozone. And I think that we should take into consideration how much political will there is behind the euro. And this is something that some countries, some investors really didn't take into full consideration. Now we are in a different stage. I think that the problem of Europe now is not as much the future of the Eurozone. Nobody questions that the euro is going to break up now.
Yeah, that talk has settled down now, hasn't it?
I think that we have taken important steps in that direction in order to dispel these doubts about the future of the Eurozone. And now I think that what we have to do is to try to pursue and to start to implement policies in order to foster growth. The main problem of the Eurozone now is that, growth prospects are not good. And I think that we have to reconsider the policies that we implemented in the past, and we are doing that.
But turnaround time is, well, my feeling is that it's a long time away. The point I was making is that right now, this reality that has been in place for, let's say, 4 or 5 years now, this is actually going to stay this way for a long time. People like you have got to make decisions, but they're only decisions which are going to impact, at the minimum 5 years down the track, really.
But I think that if you look at the Eurozone as a global economic entity, what you will realize and what you will see is that the fiscal position of the Eurozone is much better, for instance, than the fiscal position in the UK or the US. We have a public deficit that is in the area of 4%. Our public debt ratio is lower than in the case of the States. We have an external surplus. So the Eurozone as a global entity, as a whole, is competitive. And what we have is some rebalancing on the need of a further rebalancing of the Eurozone economies. This is something that we have to do. It's not easy. And simultaneously, we have to foster growth.
I mean, look at Spain, for example. You're looking at 25% unemployment, 50% with youth unemployment. That is not something which you can fix very quickly at all. And I guess, you and everyone else would worry about that whole generation.
Well, this is the main problem of Spain. Youth unemployment and the unemployment rate is our real problem. But I think that here what we have to start to do is to modify the labor conditions and to start to create jobs. And I am confident that, for instance, in the case of Spain, we will start to do it. In Europe, over the last 2-3 years, we have paid a lot of attention to fiscal consolidation. I think that it was vital. Now we have reached a point where we have to start to look to much more structural reforms in order to modify the labor conditions and the labor market situation, and in order to give a perspective, especially to the young generations of Europeans.
Can you expand more on things that are being done now to assist with job creation? Because again, you're talking about structural reform, which again is a sort of a slow turning, long-term thing. I'm wondering about now, what is the Spanish government actually doing for a person who hasn't got a job?
Well, we are doing a lot of things. First of all, we have to create the correct framework in macroeconomic terms. We need to have a good banking industry that delivers credit to the real economy. Afterwards, we have to reduce the fiscal deficit, because otherwise we could confront difficulties in capital markets. We have to reduce interest rates and the cost of finance for the private sector in Spain. We have modified the labor market regulation. We have a much more flexible labor market than we have in the past. And now we have started to see that with lower growth, we are able to start to create jobs and to modify and to reduce the unemployment rate. So I think that all together, all these conditions create a totally different framework for the future of Spain.
Let me give you an example of something. This was something which the Deputy Prime Minister of Turkey told me in a panel discussion we had at Davos earlier in the year. And he was talking about concrete sort of steps. Obviously, Turkey's not been affected as badly, but he was saying things like apprenticeships and getting young people into work, paying for their bus fare so that they can actually get to and from work. Those are good practical steps, aren't they? Things like that, that'll be a good idea.
But we have taken a lot of those steps. For instance, what we call dual formation, dual education, apprenticeship. Well, these kind of things, in order to incorporate the young generations to the labor market, I think that are vital. And I think that, well, in the case of Spain, we have taken a lot of steps in that direction. But the main problem of Spain, when you look at the labor market, is that that the regulation was extremely detrimental to job creation. And afterwards, in Spain, we had another problem, that the construction sector had a lot of weight in the economy. So in the good years, we created a lot of jobs in the construction industry. Afterwards, when the lean years arrived, well, jobs started to be lost. So now we have to compensate that. We have to reallocate the labor force from construction to other sectors of the economy, to other industries of the economy. This is something that is not easy. You need a lot of flexibility, and you need active labor policies. You need education. You need to train your labor force in order to do things that are going to be different than the ones that you have been doing over the last years.
And how do you think Spanish people are reacting to it? Because the pictures we saw for so long was just of angry young people, and rightly so. And I wonder if that turned a little bit to sort of acceptance that, well, this is how it's going to be for a while. How are they responding?
Well, I understand perfectly that there is a sort of disappointment of the young generations because, well, with a 50% unemployment rate, well, it's something that is difficult to accept either on political or economic terms. So this is the main problem of Spain, the main social problem of Spain, and the main vulnerability of the Spanish economy. So I think that people, they know that we have to take decisions that sometimes are not easy in the short term, but in the medium term, I think that they need to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And sometimes in the short term, the measures that the government is taking, is pursuing, are quite unpopular. But in the medium term, I think that the Spanish population understands that these measures are totally necessary in order to modify and to curb a very difficult situation.
The other problem which Spain has had, if we leave the unemployment there, is the banks. And this was the one area where Spain did go and look to a bailout for its banks. Not a full bailout as other countries have had, but went to recapitalise its banks. Has that worked? Has it had the desired effect to actually get credit flowing again? Because that's the other thing you've got to do, create jobs and get money moving again.
Well, I think that in the case of Spain, you are totally right. We agreed a financial assistance program with our partners of the Eurozone. We injected 40 billion euros in capital in our banks. Simultaneously, we forced the banks to provision bad assets and to bridge the gap between balance sheet valuations and the reality of the marketplace. And now we have seen also a lot of consolidation. So what I can tell you is that the banking industry of Spain, the banking sector, are in a much better position than they were only 1 year ago.
And how did you feel about even just the concept of going down this road and taking out loans? Because really loans, debt, all these things, this is the root of so many of the problems across Spain and across Europe. Keep taking more money, keep borrowing more money, keep getting deeper and deeper into trouble. Did you have to really think about, is this the best thing to do for us right now?
Well, in Spain, as I have told you, we had great growth that was beyond, but it was reasonable. But when you look at the details of the great bubble in Spain, what you see is that the great majority of the borrowing was absorbed by real estate and construction companies. So there you need to deleverage. That's totally necessary. Whereas simultaneously, what we have to do is to try to deliver credit for the rest of the economy. When you look at the evolution of the Spanish economy, what you will realize is that we are second to none in terms of export performance. In Spain, it's a competitive economy. And we have started to see, for instance, that large multinational corporations that are not financially restrained because they can have access to capital markets all over the world, have started to increase their factories in Spain. Even they are transferring production from the rest of the world towards Spain. For instance, in the case of the automobile industry. Why? Because Spain is competitive. So the problem is to try to combine this increasingly higher competitiveness of the Spanish economy with credit for these corporations. And I think that's the task that we have to achieve and that we have to accomplish over the next months.
And what about the wider Eurozone? What do you think of the proposed changes, fiscal union, centralised decision making and all those sorts of things? I mean, I'm getting the feeling you're a fan of Europe, you think it's all the right idea, but I mean, this sort of stuff surely should have been in place from the start, really.
Well, I think that when we started to create the monetary union, we made some mistakes. And the construction of the Eurozone, I would not say that it was full of flaws, but we had some flaws.
Pretty major ones, pretty fundamental ones.
Pretty fundamental ones. But again, I think that the political will behind the euro, it was much higher and much bigger than our ability in terms of creating and building up the framework of the Eurozone. I think that the next vital step in the Eurozone is going to be banking union. For a monetary union, you need for a monetary union to work properly, you need additional instruments, and the main instrument now is banking union. Why? Because the transmission of the monetary policy impulses now in Europe are broken up, and you have a fragmentation of the markets, of the credit markets. And this is something that is not acceptable. If you have low interest rates, you should have low interest rates for everyone around the Eurozone.
This is going to be the key, isn't it? Making sure it's equal, because for the duration of this crisis, I'm using that word again, but for the duration of this crisis, there's been a view that you've had other countries dictating. You've had the Germanys and the Frances of Europe telling everyone else what to do. If you're going to get some sort of union, banking union, whatever it is, there's got to be consensus and it's got to be managed equally. So as you say, everyone gets the same deal.
Yes, but we are in the same boat. There is not passengers with first class and second class in the eurozone.
It looks like that, though, doesn't it? Sometimes, I mean,
no, but I am fully convinced that everybody, the 17, there are 17 of us in the eurozone. And I am fully convinced that everybody is behind and is making efforts in order to create a better eurozone over the next years.
I want to get some final thoughts from you, more personal sort of thoughts in your job, in your capacity as the economic minister of Spain. When you get up each morning, and this kind of relates again to my first question, how do you feel? Do you think, right, I'm going to get out and tackle this next problem, I'm going to do these things, or does it all sort of overwhelm a little bit? You've been very positive in this interview, and you've shown me a lot of positive signs in the Spanish economy, and I'll give you that, but the fact is there's still all those people without jobs there, and a lot of that responsibility is on you and your government.
Well, I have a lot of responsibility, and the government has a lot of responsibility, and this is, something that you feel. But simultaneously, well, you know that you have a great country, a country that was able to grow very rapidly over the last 20 years, that is dynamic. I believe in the entrepreneurial capacity of Spain. I believe in the high quality of the Spanish workers. We are showing every day that we are able to gain market share in world markets. So, I feel confident that we will be able to overcome all these difficulties. We have huge and profound difficulties, but Spain is a great country.
Do you think the people feel that? I would just worry about people who, I'm making up a scenario here, but I'm sure it happens. There a person who's lost his job, might have to go back and move in with the parents again, if financial burden there are problems across the Eurozone with suicide and all these sorts of things. I mean, it's just grim for all those people, and for them to sort of pick themselves up and say, no, I will be an entrepreneur, I will be strong, I will try and get myself through this. Well, that's tough.
It's tough, but it's there. I understand perfectly, and I see every day the difficulties and the sufferings of the Spanish population, especially the young unemployed population in Spain. But simultaneously, I see a lot of good signs, and every cloud has a silver lining. I normally say, and I think that in the case of Spain, the silver lining is that we are competitive, that we are a dynamic economy, that we have political stability. That I think that is vital in Spain. We have a clear majority in the parliament, and the government has a clear majority. I think that has the possibility of taking measures that are tough in the short term, but that will start to produce good results in the medium term.
You feel you will see your term out, because I guess this is what any politician in Europe would worry about at the moment, that its people will make up their mind and say, actually, no, we don't like what you're doing.
Well, but I think that I think that on political grounds, the main reason of a political party is to win the elections, no? And the main goal of every political party. But I think that now the Spanish government is fully focused on taking Spain out of the woods.
Is there anything holding you back, do you feel? I know that's a very broad question, but I just wonder, again, when you sit down at your desk and think, right, I want to do these things, oh, but there's this in the way, oh, but there's that in the way.
Well, I think that in Spain what we have is a diagnosis of the economic situation. We have identified the imbalances of the Spanish economy. We have a clear majority in the parliament, so we are able to take the measures. And I think that, we want to be fair in terms of distributing the efforts that we are asking to the population. And especially, and I think that this is important, I think that we have to request and we have to ask for much more to the, the rich people than to the rank and file. This is something that we are trying to do. And the final outcome is to try to reduce the unemployment rate, to create jobs, and to start to deliver prosperity to the Spanish society.
Do you put a time frame on any of this? I know it's difficult given the way the crisis has gone, but do you start to say, right, within 5 years I want to have unemployment in half or something? I mean, do you set yourself goals like that, or is it all still too fluid?
Well, I do not want to create any sort of false expectation about the future. But what I can assure you is that, for instance, next year we will have growth. We will start to create jobs. Well, we will start to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Minister de Guindos, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for
It's been
talking
a
to Al
pleasure to be
Jazeera.
with you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.